Welcome back to the Geometric View, Season 7, Episode 78. In this episode, we get into external memory. What is external memory? Where does external memory reside? Is it in the double layers? Is it in the surface tension of the double layers? What is it? And where is it? Memory. It's in everything. So the 2022 Electromagnetic Universe World Expo was amazing. We'll be releasing the
link is in the show notes below
on this channel.
Let's get into the circuit.
The Geometric
We
View.
appreciate your support. The best way to donate to us is on PayPal. Just send money directly to goldenscaling@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
That was random. Right, so external memory, externalized memory is the thing that I got really into last night. Microdosing a little bit and having rum, and pretty soon I started to kind of think about the stuff in Molly's house and realize how little I understood it, and by reflection, therefore, how much more of her there was to understand. And then it touched into, the feng shui, which is obviously a flow thing, obviously electrical flow, wind flow, all that kind of flow. And yeah, I just wanted to open up the topic for us to talk about externalized memory systems that we use, how our stuff reflects our psyche, why we end up owning certain things, why certain things stick with us, and then there's things that we love and they go away. I'm gonna mute myself because of this car wash.
Did he get cut off, or did he go into the car wash?
I think he went into the car wash. I think the whole memory of him was wiped clean.
Yes.
Clear. Hard to use Skype from inside a car wash.
It's like the Willy Wonka. He's squeezing through and turning into a new vehicle.
Right. I've actually, in the past the last night was a kind of a powerful night, and then the night before, 2 evenings in a row have been very much in line synchronistically with what he's talking about right now. It's crazy. But something as simple as a refrigerator magnet that I got years ago has for some reason become a part of, what I'm doing this morning. I've been going through this crap this morning. It's weird. So I think to the point, I want to stay on the topic and not get off onto my own personal journey here. But as far as the topic is concerned, I think that there's an etheric field. Obviously, we all have talked about that. And then as far as memory is concerned, that etheric field maintains, I don't want to say, but it retains some form of a flow energetically that is able to, through, unlocking of certain levels of our DNA code, whatever physical reaction takes place in order to activate that antenna, allows individuals at different levels to access that energetic field that has and retains all of the memories, or all of the knowledge, or the Akashic records, whatever you want to call them, semantically. But it's a very much a real thing, and I think that the more individuals, you go back, let's say hypothetically, you go back and look at priests and canonized individuals from the past. They would fast, they would go through extreme levels of poverty, distress, be put in prisons, solitude for days and months and years on end. And through these processes of that level of physical suffering, almost to a degree, allowed certain aspects of their DNA to unlock, or at least receive what they would then turn into great works of literature, or at least be recognized later for today, as great works of literature. So it's just a thought there. I think that there's a lot to be said for what is floating around in the world around us that we just don't simply, physically can't see.
Well, there is probably an extremely good whimsical topic in there, on account of if the body stores emotional data, then there's not much reason why physical objects can't store entangled states of thought and emotion, psychic energy. And in fact, most of the hauntings outside of that aren't thought forms of people's own.
I'd have to say that a lot of objects. This gets into cursed objects.
Ooh, when negative. Dang.
This
Joking.
well, cursed and blessed objects and relics.
There we go. Much better. Sorry.
They're often wooden, but they're often personal objects. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of objects that get imprinted with thought data.
Well, one of the first ones that comes to mind is Jimmy Dean's car. That no one goes near it anymore because it's that cursed. It was sold over and over, and then everybody who's bought it, like I would botch the details, but like people kept dying and like stuff just kept surrounding. Every time someone got the car or something happened, someone got ill. And then, I mean, I understand the mummies when it comes to Egypt. I understand like them being able to store, what's that? Poisons and different germs. There's another word I was looking for, but
Bacteria.
yeah, it has the ability to store all sorts of
Bacteria
stuff.
body.
Yeah, bacteria and curses, and that's really just like germ games. There was another word I'm looking for, but that right there could be considered. Sorry, I'm making coffee. Sounds like I'm peeing. Those right there could consider having the memory be in the object, or maybe around the object. But yeah, object permanence and objects have memory, I would say.
Well, if COVID-19 was a programmed emotional attack as well as obviously illness and chemical warfare, and it was actually thought warfare for control and cowing the public and all these different things, creating fear and rage, as I suggested back during the thing with my fear acronym for it, then there's not much to say that there isn't a general behavior of chemicals to have an effect on not just the bacterial sphere of our gut and the virosphere around us, but that really this imprinting can happen on any object. In which case, we think about hoarders, we think about bad feng shui. What I call feng shui is obviously illness inside the person being externalized, but also people do this like as a natural habit. They store themselves in objects, and often they don't even care about those objects. They've owned it, and then I mean, there's things that meant a lot to me as objects, and I just couldn't keep them. They just kept running away or disappear. And of course, there's always things that people, they see something that's yours and they lust after it, and then they want to steal it. And why is that? Is it just the pure material? Because it's not often gold. I mean, how many of us are carrying around gold objects? So what is it that, like, why do they want to steal this object if there's not something really special about it? And I think that there's something to go towards having good feng shui has a lot to do with managing our external memory systems as well as our internal memory systems, including if we grow stuff. Like if I grow this clinic, there has to be enough space. And when I collapsed 2 clinics into one, there was all this, it was like 2 different places joined into one place, and it was super saturated with the history. And I felt this huge need to clean out the closets and shred charts to get rid of a lot of the past so that I could live in this present moment with the situation, as you guys know that I have. And it's kind of weird. It's like, why did the a lot of the Berea history have to be destroyed. It's almost like, I mean, a lot of really weird things did happen at the Berea Clinic, and eventually it kind of made me feel kind of ill of the place. But again, having to carry a home, having to carry a clinic around, you're getting a lot of background noise, buddy. Around the
I'm so sorry,
the
guys.
house.
I totally thought I was on mute. I'm so sorry about that.
You're okay. It's a burden, and what if that burden, just like the topic I'm writing about, where the golden light, the people cognize objects, and it brings the transformer heart. What if objects that we carry around, similar to music or senses, the 5 flavors, all the different things that can drain the self and make you lose Tao, what if all these objects eventually can pull a person out of balance too? So I think it's actually a really important topic that no one's talking about, of course, like anywhere.
I think you're tying something together that I've never really heard tied together too much, which I don't even know why this word keeps coming up or where it comes from. Object permanence. In order for you to keep your object and your good stuff, your gold chains, your cute little rocks, your crystals, you have to remember where they are. So this memory that the object has, you also have to have a memory to keep that object around, because otherwise you'll keep losing your stuff. And then that gets into a genius mind, a genius operating in and not squalid or filthy conditions, but extremely disheveled conditions, and able to know exactly where everything is. That memory, because there's the saying that goes, one definition of someone's definition of a genius is that they can find anything in all of their clutter, and they know exactly where everything is. And they walk into the room and they pick up a stack of papers and a huge stack, and they pull out one sheet of paper and they're like, "Here you go."
So my question goes to the overarching power of P when associated with either an inanimate object versus a human being's ability to generate consistent and regular through the heart mind, the heart beating, producing chi. So it's constantly producing that. Then through also, like you just explained, buddy, through the concept of memory. So it's always producing that on a regular basis at a timed interval based upon the heartbeat and the mind and the blood flow and all of these things. So the human individual, the beings themselves, not just humans, but animals as well, but we're talking about in relationship to us as humans. So I'm going to, gear it that way for the sake of this train of thought. But so then you have that constant pulsing and the constant chi, the constant radiating of that memory, the constant thought process that goes with that, which is the connectivity to this etheric field that is available. So these inanimate objects would therefore be more or less like a diving board or a springboard to jump into that. So that's, I think, the importance that we might be wanting to talk about a little bit maybe. The inanimate objects, they represent a springboard to the ability to remember past, the ability to think, the ability to connect to these locations. So it's the power of that is definitely different. We have to agree that there's a difference in the etheric power between an inanimate object versus inanimate objects. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's just the way my brain went when I was listening to you right now was like, well, human beings have a constant, consistent, as far as the time is concerned, to consistently repeat and through the rhythmic heartbeat this energetic field, whereas the solid state have been frozen. The inanimate objects such as a refrigerator magnet or a crystal or any kind of crystals are semi in between the state of organic to inorganic, but you have the ability from there, those inanimate objects, to hold that power of time, whereas the human is constantly in perpetual motion down the harmonic. Does that make sense? So what's the difference, I guess, is the question. What's the difference in the powers that these things represent?
I think I just wanted to say one thing real quick so I don't lose what I wanted to say earlier. If you possess gold and silver and jewelry and rings and stuff, I just found out recently, this past weekend, someone was talking about it. If the DEA or someone breaks in your house, they can steal all of your gold, all of your money, all of everything in the drugs and etc., and say that it's involved in money and drug money. But if you're
they're
wearing,
more welcome to try. And as I said before, and I don't mind saying on recording, fuck around and find out. Because motherfuckers come to my house without good reason, motherfucker's going to die.
that's fine.
So,
This isn't a threat. I was just talking about if they can come in your house and steal all your stuff, but if you're wearing it, if it's on your possession, they can't take it. They can't take it. They have to legally bring you into jail, and then they put it in your jail bin or whatever, and then you get it when you get out. So that's why I was thinking a lot of thugs and a lot of gangsters wear big chains and their gold because they're legally allowed to keep it.
Well, that actually speaks to the marriage, kind of not ritual, but the marriage ceremonies that take place in India and Pakistan and such. And I'm not sure of all the other different cultures, but I know specifically of the Pakistani culture that the bride is just completely adorned head to toe, completely covered in gold chains and jewelries and things like this, almost where you can't even see her face, like completely covered as part of that process of getting married. So it speaks to that as well, possession of these things. I think it's a good point too, because there's actual history, I guess you could say, or at least ceremonial legacy knowledge about the concept of possession, and it's present in the current Pakistan marriage process.
Well, let's talk about that word possession and memory. Sometimes people get demon possessed. Sometimes we possess things, and sometimes false memories possess us.
the most common hauntings are people's own memories, and then after that is thought forms, and then after that is actual entities, and then finally, lastly, like below animals and spirits, is actual demons. And there might be aliens too, but the jury's out. Is a difference between a hyperdimensional alien and a demon. There really isn't any proof either one way or the other. So, people often, memories haunt them all the time. I had a patient who actually tattooed the word regret on his back. And I was basically treating him for that, although obviously he was there for pain. But, it was definitely like some work getting him to sever himself from that regret, because he tattooed it on himself, for God's sakes. Not a wise thing for him.
And everyone.
He asked me if it was wise to do. I said no.
Could I suggest that maybe a lot of this has to do with an individual, could be any of us as well, our view of the security. It's like a young child. You'll give a young child, say, a toy like a fluffy toy, and it becomes like their security thing. I've seen young kids have a favourite blanket. It becomes like a security blanket. And to go a little deeper with what some have been said, well, a friend of mine, she's had PTSD or got PTSD, and she's shifting, and she said to me about cleaning her shed out. And when you went through it all, there was all these things that were just sort of collected as I need it, but I didn't need it. And basically, I sat down on a chair and drank coffee, and she'd go through each one, and I'd say, well, you want to keep that, Joe? Yes, no, and throw it in the bin, and then no, and I just said, anything you're not sure, I'll put in another pile. And then a couple of days later, we went back and went through it again, and by the time we finished, there was hardly any left. Now, I've got an uncle that I've got to do a similar thing with. He's got 2 bedrooms that you can virtually not walk into. They're just stacked up with stuff, you know, like really old stuff. Some of it, you know, those like that no one uses anymore. And it'll be the same process. Just sit there, and when you listen to these people speaking about it, it's like a security thing that they've put around them of their life. You know, a way of remembering their life, parts of their life.
And that gets into talismans. You see, I mean, I think it does. I mean, it speaks a lot to the concept of talismans completely.
Well, before we do talismans and magic, I do have a funny story to share. I said I had microdosed, but one time I was actually tripping balls this is many years ago, more than a decade for sure. And when we were like on our way in, things were starting to get weird. Charles, who turned out to be a piece of garbage, but at the time we were friends. I physically watched him rearrange his desk. And it seemed like 5 minutes straight, but who knows how long it actually was. But he kept doing it over and over again. He kept rearranging trying different arrangements of his desk, his workspace. And at some point we started giggling. He said, "What am I doing?" And I said, "I don't know, man." You know, he was, and I think based on what we're working on, this whimsical discussion, I think that he was actually reconfiguring his brain, and then the brain was externalizing it through the hands and, you know, telekinesis here. He was actually moving the object around as a representation of the neuroplasticity that was occurring because he was high on this psychedelic. And it was just fascinating watching him as well as him. Then he had that 4th dimensional perspective come in where he saw himself doing it, and he's like, "Why am I doing this?" It was pretty interesting, and I've thought about it from time to time ever since then. I never connected it to my feng shui work, but it is kind of connected. I had a patient who, you know, they moved, and I mentioned her before, and I've actually asked her to come on the show to talk about her son and our work to fix her son. But when they moved, she hired me, and intuitively she knew she needed me to come out there, and so I came out, and I found all sorts of problems with the property. And, you know, one of them was a safety thing. And within a month of living there, a neighbor, they had to call the cops on a neighbor. And I told them, you need to define a boundary here because these people are going to cut into your boundaries and it's not going to be good. But what was interesting is they chose a house whose bright hall had been robbed, and the back porch had been turned into the bright hall. But it wasn't a bright hall. It wasn't a good bright hall, and it was going to be bad for the health of the home and the energy. And it all came about because the original plan for that house was to be part of a neighborhood. The neighborhood never materialized, so the front porch became the back porch, and the back porch became the front porch. And everything about the house had been now arranged by the previous owners for 20, 30 years to be backwards. The internal layout of the place was perfectly fine, but the external layout was actually dangerous for their health. And so I was prescribing mitigations. And so like I say, they had an issue. So when she comes on, we'll have her actually talk about those things as well as the health stuff. All right. So talismans. Jonathan, you're going to have to connect people with what talismans are. And I assume you mean the making of talismans. And then where were your thoughts going with that?
Well, you know, goodness, you caught me off on that one. Well, I guess in traditional history, from what we understand talismans to be, they're just more religious objects, you know, that have been given kind of some form of magical powers that have used in order to protect, or in some bad cases to harm individuals. But they're always carried around with you. They're, you know what I mean? They're intended for one particular individual most of the time, I imagine. So you're looking at necklaces, rings, you know, things like this. I don't know. I mean, as far as that's concerned, for the most part, from what our understanding in the past has always been in some form of a religious aspect. But you also have, so I guess it has a ritualistic aspect to it, very similar to what you just described with your friend, rearranging his desk in order to not reprogram, but program his mind or readjust or have some form of the process of doing that gave him some form of clarity mentally, whatever it was at the time for the purpose and intent of that particular journey you guys were on.
That's like ritual and memory,
Right.
and memory tied together, and people doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Why do they do it? Because it's a ritual. Why do we do a ritual? I don't know. Because it's a tradition. Where did the tradition come from? I don't know.
So as far as humans, we know as we progress physically, through this thing called time, the ability to lose track of that moment, that journey, the memory of that time, we can lose that fades through time because of basically like a hard drive constantly, it gets just overwritten. Same thing with the human brain, it gets overwritten. So in order to compensate for that overwrite that's taking place, we have the ability to reference back to amulets, to different talismans, to rekindle and to redraw to remember that that particular moment of the rearranging, so that therefore your brain can then take what it's learned in that time frame that's taken place from the talisman's origin to now. You can join those two bridges. It's a bridge between the two, hypothetically. I'm just hypothesizing here, but that might be something worth kind of thinking about there, whimsically, that talismans have been or are or can be a way to remember a placeholder in time and the energetic, emotional, etheric field that is created at that time, and for you to be able to always have access to it, at least at a minimal amount, to take what you've learned up to that point as well, and remember, but as well apply all of the knowledge base and everything that you've learned up to that point, and then have those two combine at that point, and then carry on from there. Energetically, emotionally, physically, it's a progressional process, I think, in that way.
So the
morning fellow humans.
Morning, Rick.
Morning, Rick.
Hello, Rick. Ramon, and everyone. So I listen. It's amazing how this has come about, and like what you said earlier on, because during the day when I was out just fiddling around today, I listened to what's his name, Lipton, talking about how to prevent 90% of all disease from affecting you. And basically, what we're talking about is your mind. So his argument, his basic premise is that your genes don't do nothing. Your genetics or your genes do nothing except for what the environment or what you tell them to do for the environment that you're in, if you get where I'm coming from with that. So if you always think you're going to have, say, a cancer, there's a good chance you'll end up with one. And that goes back to what you're talking about with this now, is how then we've sort of interconnected it onto it. And I know, different people I'm involved with. And some of the things, like I said, I still think a lot of what we're talking about has to do with a perception of the security of your life. I don't mean just living, I mean everything around you.
Yeah, that's a great point. Everything is literally geared towards survival mechanisms.
Yep.
Our brain, our hands, everything.
And how well you perceive you're surviving, whether that be through spiritual, material, or whatever.
I want to go back to the talisman topic when people are ready. But go ahead, and I'd love to get people's responses to what Jonathan had said before I do.
Mm-hmm. Could I run something by you guys?
Of course.
Okay. You've still got that video that Greg J and I did, about pre-antediluvian language, telepathy, right? And that video goes into the extent to which studying languages, can clear things up. And there are a number of ways of looking at that. One of the things which is most funny comparing English to most of your European languages is the question of gender, right? I mean, inanimate objects in English do not have gender, right? They are considered to be neuter gender if they're considered to have any gender at all. Okay, whereas in most European languages, including Slavic languages, it's like even inanimate things as often as not have gender, right? Trees, roads, hills, every sort of thing, right? It's like these things all are thought of as having gender of some sort. And that may be some sort of a key to some of the things that you guys seem to enjoy studying. Okay. Because to have gender, it's like you have to be alive, right? You have to be alive in some sense. And, apparently it's like, at least at some early point in the history of Indo-European languages, they did regard most of the things that you would encounter in the world as having gender and as being alive.
Right. But that goes
which is
back to the fields that Jonathan was bringing up earlier. Let's do life and what would you say, life and the law of polarity. Let's do that just after. I guess so. I want to tell you all a little bit about Taoist talismans, what are called Fu. Fu are, of course, like Buddy said, a ritual or traditional system. There have been people that try to copy older ones, but actually you have to create the Fu yourself, and in codes, part of you goes into the Fu. So you don't want to be writing these things all the time. And similarly, as the natives are afraid of having their photos taken for something, stealing it, you don't want to lose parts of yourself, because these little pieces of paper go to seal objects or, perform a specific function, healing, whatever it is. Now, what's interesting
real quick, that's the same as people keeping their teeth. Your parents keeping your teeth because, you're like, Mommy, why do you keep my teeth when you pull them out? Or why does the tooth fairy keep them?
Yes, and that is very specifically.
I don't want to lose one little piece of you, whether it's attached or not. It's still a part of you, honey.
There is actually the storage of memory is a kidney in Chinese medicine, is a kidney related thing, and the teeth, of course, are controlled by the kidney. But if you have dreams about teeth, then you're having dreams about family. But specifically, what I wanted to say about Fu talismans is that they are more closely related to programming than they are to traditional magic. Literally, you are writing commands onto this paper, and it's supposed to force spirits, including if you have the authority. That's the thing, is the Taoists have rituals. You don't just be, let's say that you're a kid in a Taoist village, and then you get taken up by the local shaman guy. He teaches you what he knows about Tao and what he knows about exorcisms and marriage. Well, you're now at the bottom rung of a hierarchy that was established long ago by the Celestial Masters, and you can only graduate so high without going through different grades. This is all in the Taoist Master Zhuang book by Michael Sassow. Now, you can't skip rungs either, but I have experienced that you can hack your own true self and bring more of you into your existence and get access to things that you wouldn't normally have access to. And that hacking has to be because there's some kind of code. And these Fu talisman appear to be an externalized system of, instead of wishing for something, they mimically create that membrane, and then they program the object or the situation to react and give them the result, which could be an actual attack. They could attack someone with these, or they could protect someone with them. They can seal up spirits in jars. They can do magic healing. There's all sorts of things that they assert that they are able to do. And they're supposed to be actually fairly good. And then the other side is sometimes, and this is a folk practice as well, they will, just like the peasants will burn money for their ancestors, they'll make the talisman and then they'll burn it back. And as we all know, fire is a plasma. So I just thought I'd throw that grenade in there and see where it goes. Jonathan, you're the guy who brought up talismans.
Dan Winter does a good show on talismans. But I wanted to bring up something real quick. If you wanted to go after here in a second here, Jonathan. But when you were talking, Ramon, it reminded me of sound and how sound has a memory, and sound is a memory of sound can be an echo. And then where is the object itself? You know, is it that, I don't know, is there it's just weird because it's in multiple places at once, you know, and it was released, a sound was released, and then it exists, but it doesn't exist until the other part hears it, the other party or yourself hears it after it refracts off the walls or whatever. So just thinking about that for a minute, that's kind of weird. But please go on with the talisman. The Taliman.
Taliman banana.
Taliman banana. Beetlejuice.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, guys. I think it goes back to the concept again. Whatever form we associate a talisman to, I think we do put ourselves into them a lot. We whether it's something that has been made, especially in this generation now, but whether it's something that has been made specifically by us or for us, we all put, as far as materialistic things are concerned, put some meaning behind materialism or objects in general. I think it has a lot to do with memory, you know, and then to the power of language. You know, you've got all of these different amulets or talismans with, you know, writings or sayings, or some in different forms. Like, I remember when I was a kid, one of the biggest things to do was get your name from Egypt. You know what I mean? Like, every time anybody goes to Egypt, they get their name, but they get it translated into the hieroglyphic on a necklace, a cartouche, you know, and then that was always the big thing. And it's always the big thing for all the people coming to visit the Middle East. They all want to go get their name in Arabic on a cartouche. So I think there's a lot to be said for the power of language when it's associated with this as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think it really just, I really would like to, if we can, steer the conversation just for a second back to the concept of, you know, the power behind something like an amulet or a talisman or a rock or a book, even, you know, that we read years ago that put us in that frame of mind, put us in that reference point, or anything that's an object that we relate and associate, you know, through memory. What's the difference in the powers there between the human traveling forward and then the object remaining in that moment in time? From conception, or at least into introduction to us in our perceptual world, that object was brought to us, no matter if it was made by us, no matter if it was made by somebody else, it was made directly for us, or it was written for us, or it was just written for a general audience. The power of perception for the individual in the relationship to that object, how is that, you know, what is that power? And then that, I think, based upon that connectivity of that power, then flows the ability to connect to the etheric memory, just in my mind, or just at least for the sake of this conversation.
You can turn and dial up the meaning of any object closer to your heart or further away from your heart. And when us recording a memory for other people to have, or memory in the form of written word, is what we've lived through throughout the past religious ages that we've been going through. Those are people's writings that produce a memory or are a memory that comes from somewhere, whether it's real or not. And then we read it, we enact on it, we repeat it like a spell book. You repeat the spell, you do it right on the third Thursday with the full moon and, a cat's paw in your mouth. And all of a sudden something happens. It's that something happens is a lot of the time is because of the power of suggestion, or is it the memory of the original person that wrote the scribe into the book to tell the rest of the world, hey, look, this is how you unlock this memory. This is how you unlock. And if it's a memory or a spirit, that could be the same too. Memories and spirits, we oftentimes think directly together. When someone dies, where does that go? All we have is the memories and their objects. So we carry around our loved ones' objects, possibly even their ashes and their bodies themselves around as a talisman. And what I want to try to wrap my head around here with us is let's talk about memory, but let's talk about and external memory, where is it stored? But let's talk about like it on every scale. Okay, we just talked about it in the written. We could still talk about it in the written format, but there's memory in the written format. There's memory in the ether. There's memory in sound. There's most of the memory is in music. Okay, music, and the olfactory sense of smell.
Oh yeah, that's a big one actually. That's actually the one that they say is the sense that's most closely related to memories is the smell.
Yep. It's all senses. So all memory is tied directly to senses. And how do you heighten how do you remember situations the best? All the best situations that everybody's gone through is when their senses are heightened. Not necessarily the best, but the most memorable of all of our life sequences is when our senses are heightened the most. When you're running from the bad guy, when you're running from the good guys, even the cops, when you're, or quote unquote good guys, ACAB. But these memories, when you're tripping, your senses, when they're expanded, is when the memory track starts to hit the record button. It's not the moments when you're sitting down watching TV or eating popcorn. Oftentimes, the mundane minutia often gets forgotten. But it's these larger parts where the memory is created in the first place that we have a memory of it, because it embeds itself. It embeds itself through the senses into our intellect, into our memory, and creates an actual electrical reality in our life.
So hypothetically speaking, and I think this is something I actually think is true, and I don't know if we're able to ever prove it, but potentially it's not necessarily the memory is stored in one particular place, but yet in multiple places. Now it's taken up into the ethos and then stored through, I think, the path that is created by the luminaries in the sky. So you have these planets that are there up above us, and that path that the memories are taking are in a cyclic form, coming back around. Saturn comes back around. It's the Tool song. But each as they get in alignment or into different distances from our planet here, that allows the unlocking, or at least the access to the memories that were formed underneath that same planetary alignment previously. So to do the planetary alignment, does that deliver access to the overarching etheric field of where memory is stored? It's stored in a perpetual motion through the energy and through the events that caused either bubbles, so to speak, buddy, to use your word, bubbles, the memories create bubbles inside of that field that then go to and back to the planets and back. And by the time they come back, we have access to, we have the ability to access them based upon our ability, or at least our connectivity individually, whatever, the physical makeup of our bodies, the DNA, whatever the case may be, in order to turn on that antennae. But we're able to access the memories that are flowing. And, it's like a surfer on a surfboard. You can just jump on the wave and ride it for a while and recall these things. So it's not necessary that it's in one place. It's in the 9 harmonics, the 9 planets. The 9 harmonics of this planet is where the memory is stored in an etheric field. And then they convalesce here, at least for the sake and during the time of alignments.
Well, we could talk about, we could talk about the memory of rocks, the memory of stones. Oh, if these walls could talk, if I could only be a fly on the wall in this conversation, that's what's happening nowadays. The memories are getting recorded on our electrical devices, and they're being stored in huge vats. Now we could take that.
Right. That's just nature. That's just us as humans, copying nature, I think.
Yeah. But we're externalizing. We're talking about external memory right now. We're talking about, well, I don't know why I keep going to external memory. I think we're talking about memory just in general, but I thought remote.
Well, we're all connected, so it is external, but it's also internal. So it's, it's a little bit of both. It's just that our brains we don't have the capacity.
Below.
Right. We don't have the capacity to store it all in one location based upon, necessarily right yet, because that takes a developmental process in order to be able to store massive amounts. And I guess, I don't know.
You were just talking about that the information's there in the ether. The information is there. Ask and you shall receive. You have not because you ask not. And that's literally, it's most of the time we don't know the right question to ask.
Well, if Elaine McCusick is right, then our memories are stored in our magnetic field.
Well, she would be the first person to predict that. That's been theorized since, I don't know. Anyway,
it's a little too simple.
It's not too simple. She's probably right. It's probably what we've been talking about since the beginning of these episodes is the ether, the data ether, the ether that's around our body.
The magnetic fields are, that's like 1/3 of the data, plus that leaves out the DNA aspect. I just suspect it's too simple. It's alluring because it's simple, but it's too simple.
Well, all of our senses do the same damn thing. Think about it. All of our senses do the same damn thing.
But not the same way. They do, but not the same way.
Yeah, but think about it. It's all in through space. Sense of smell, and all of them also are the inverse square law, inverse cube law. They radiate from a source. Even smells use the inverse cube, inverse square law. All of them.
What if magnetic fields are responsible for the morphogenic field in its creation?
The magnetic fields allow us to be able to retain these memories and not be sucked completely and wholly into the ethos, up and around and back around through the planets. So it could be exactly what you're saying, Rick, but it could also be the antithesis of what you're saying on the opposite side, that our magnetic field actually allows us to retain instead of it being completely taken away from us and sent out into the ethos.
Well, I think there's something tying directly to our senses being heightened and memories being created, because that's how memories are created. And music, when old Alzheimer's patients play music, they come back. The life comes back into their eyes. Music has. I have this whole philosophy. I'm not going to introduce more of it right now, but it's going to help a lot of people. People need what I've been doing for a long time. We all need it because there's just a hyper consumption going on and hyper everything, hyper depression, hyper issues, hyper mental problems. And I think that a lot of these can be nipped in the butt by just changing our habits a little bit. Speaking of habits are exactly what memory is. You do something once, it works, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. Then that habit becomes a memory. Then it becomes muscle memory, and you're not even doing it anymore, like beating a heart.
Yeah, but see, are we talking about memory or, events created in time? Which, yes, I agree. What's the difference, John? I think it's a bubble in time that's created, and then some of them will have the ability to, because you are gonna, and I say a bubble, but it's a multitude of, kind of like, the concept of the multiverse. You have multiple whatever, but it's really just one bubble that's created based upon something that you've done or something that you remember or something that's occurred in that time frame that you're in, and then that creates a string of bubbles behind that as it progresses through the harmonics, so to speak, but it progresses through that timeline and dissipates, I guess you could say, or the bubble shrinks as it progresses further away from that moment in time, but then you're able to increase that, yeah.
It implodes,
but it leaves a trace. It leaves a trail.
It like folds itself inside, so it's not there anymore. But there's the burning residuals of it. It can be sensed and remembered and detected, so it's there.
And see, that's why I think, honestly, when you have these major events that occur, the Challenger explosion, 9/11, Kennedy getting shot in the face, these things create points and bubbles, massive bubbles collectively for humanity as a whole. And then from that point,
gold since 9/11. I mean, it's skyrocketed.
But since that point, as you create that in the ethos, this massive group of individuals all paying attention to this one event, no matter what the event is, it creates a bubble. And then with everyone as a whole, across however many people, the message or the concept or the event that is remembered, because everybody says, well, I remember exactly where I was when Kennedy was shot, or I remember exactly where I was when the Challenger exploded. So those all create individual bubbles that form a massive, very big bubble for humanity as a whole. And who's to say that individuals running this realm haven't figured out how to, the reason for these major events that they sometimes stage and sometimes create on the world scale aren't designed specifically to create that bubble so that it can then be not hijacked, but used in whichever way that these creators, or not creators, these gatekeepers determine to use these bubbles.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time they don't have they don't control the outcome, but as much as they think. They control the chaos because they
I agree with that.
And then all of a sudden all this residual stuff starts happening, and they're like, wow, we didn't even know that was going to happen, or we didn't even mean for that to happen, but that works perfectly in our favor.
But it all comes back around.
So getting back on the topic there, there was something you guys hit upon. It had to do with memory. But I would say that I suppose there's no way to talk about this without talking about the lossiness in the system. Why I'm here updating the FAQ for EPEMC and MEMS. And there are a lot of things that have been developed since the document was written originally, which, by the way, still annoyingly and suspiciously, Google has it flagged, and it's just an FAQ. So why would the file look suspicious unless they were trying to suppress other forms of knowledge? But at any rate, why write these things down? Why write down the things that come into your brain? Well, because if you don't, then there's no way for it to interface with other people, because there's no way to easily transfer some communicative knowledges. So it may be that communication itself is a huge part of not only the discussion of memory, but of this externalized memory concept. But I agree, it's hard to talk about only externalized memory and not also get into the internalized memory. My suspicion as far as magnetism goes is it's way too simple an explanation, but there is definitely fields, and I would go with fields for sure. But which form of fields, that's going to be difficult to determine because of the interwoven nature of electricity and magnetism. Plus, there is very strong likelihood that the Akashic is the same thing as the counter space, and the storage of our entropy could be also part of the memory discussion. So hit on any of those things: communication, entropy, whatever you want. I don't care. I'm just
well, for me, it's like when like a cigarette smoke rising up from a cigarette, it cannot go back into the cigarette. So that's not something that's possible. I think the analogy here for the, I don't know why I want to reference it, I just do. But so as we create these bubbles in time, it can't, the bubble as itself, as it was, as we recognize it at that time, that memory that was created cannot be fully reinstated ever. It can't go back into what it was.
Our morphogenic field, our magnetic field, is connected to Earth's magnetic field. Earth's magnetic field is touching some portion of the sun's magnetic field. The sun's magnetic field is touching some portion of the galactic magnetic field. This may be the structure of the morphogenic field, or the Akashic record, as some call it. This may be how we can pull information from one greater source of information down to our level. It's through these magnetic fields and capturing that information through that way. We don't know exactly how memory works 100%. Yes, part of it is in the brain, but a lot of it might be stored out externally outside in your magnetic field.
If you take, for example, like what you were just saying, Rick, and you add Gerald Pollack's idea of structured water. What we're talking about is structure here. We're talking about the structure of memory, the structure of thought, the structure of crystallizing a moment and being able to capture it and share it with other people. That's what memory is. Memory, externalizing your memory, your thoughts.
Well, it all has to do with frequencies too, because your brain has an individual, a specific frequency. It may be separate from somebody else's by just like a 0.000%. But I think the universe is structured in such a way that those fine measurements are separate from each other, and it's just the way it seems that magnetic fields work is resonance. Your planet's going to sit on the sun's magnetic field because it's resonating at this frequency. Anyways,
if I could continue with where I was going with this, I'm getting somewhere. What I'm saying is that the memory could very well be the structure of the surface tension. The surface tension comes down to everything. And that's the surface tension of a moment. That's the surface tension of the water. The only thing that changes in the water, in structured water, that we can measure, that has measurable changes, is the tensegrity, the tension of the surface tension of the water. It gets tighter. That memory is probably on the boundary conditions on every double layer. That's where I think the memories exist. There's just a swath.
I was about to say that exact thing, the double layer concept. Once you get past that first surface tension, you go to that second layer. The potentiality inside of that, the momentum inside of that, the velocity of that, the frequency of the internal layer is what I think matters more than anything in the forming of them.
Yes, it's like an epiphany. Liken it to an epiphany because it is the bubble of new knowledge pushing out all of the old information and literally circumnavigating all the old information's going around a bubble that's rising to the surface. And the bubble itself is like the headway of your new thought. And it's like forcefully charging it. And it's like, when there's nothing more powerful, you know, than whatever. That's a quote that's not here or there, but it is, and very well can be, the tension, the surface tension. Nobody was talking about the surface tension of birkeland currents before I started talking about it in the electric view. Now Don Scott, all of them start talking about it. Did anybody even know about it or think about it? I don't know. I could care less. But was I the one that spurred it? Who knows? Probably someone else. But the thing is that most likely it's a galactic conveyor belt. And I was just listening to Roger Penrose describing the universe, and he said, well, what we should find, the more we look, is we should find an umbilical cord. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Now they're using my umbilical cord ideas? Like, but it's not my ideas. People have been talking about this forever. This is the silver cord. There's an umbilical cord for everything. They're talking about it now. Finally, they're using the language. Now, connect that umbilical cord to the umbilical cord in the Dougherty sets and the Theodorian roots, and you have the fruiting body of abiogenesis, the structure before structure, a priori, or what is it? Something out of nothing. There's another word for it, or not ordo ad chaos, but
transmutation.
Ex nihilos. It's transmutation. Yeah, it's how reality transmutes into existence all the time. That's what's happening. Now, getting back to external memory, I really think, and I do believe that some people are more sympathetic than others. Some people are, what's it called when you're really tuned in? You have apathy. No, not apathy. Empathy, empath. So there's an empath. Some people are more empathic than others. And I noticed that with certain empaths, they're more drawn to certain objects and rocks and stones. And they're just like, oh my gosh, this is my little baby. You know, like I dated this girl who was just like, every rock was like a whole new universe. Some people say that's simple-minded. Some people say that that's an empath, and being able to feel the energy of the rock, bro, you know, like, and some people make fun of it, but it's there, it's real nonetheless. And I keep talking about this rock that was hand polished, and back to the talisman. This was someone's talisman. They carried it in their hand everywhere they went. They probably traveled all around the world. And now I found it, and it's in my hand, and I have no idea the story of this rock, but it makes me feel good. And I rub it now, and I walk around rubbing it. And I have another stone that I rub. And it's kind of like, you know, they call them worry stones or whatever. And there's also stress balls. This is to help us not think about reality. It's like a drug, these stress balls. And get like drinking alcohol helps you not think about your sad life. But this is all repression of memory again. So it's like, what are we repressing? We're repressing and pushing forward with memory. And I don't want to jump around too much, but I do like the idea of it being a structured memory, being structured on the double layer. And when you have an epiphany thought, that completely changes your whole body. You become a new being. You become reborn when you have these visceral spiritual moments. That's why God exists in the first place, because we get transcended through thoughts. Thoughts can transcend us, and that's just nothing more than someone's memory written down.
Buddy, I wanted to mention that you probably are the first to mention surface tension and the plasma like that, but I have been obsessed with surface tension since I was a child. Abnormally so. I was the kind of kid that brought Sterno to the school to do the experiment and crush the can, and they actually let me back then. You know, we actually had the fire in the classroom. It was pretty cool. And I was always interested in surface tension. It was a very arbitrary feature of water to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
I think it's actually probably a really key concept that you're bringing up there about the surface tension. And it's one of the most sticky concepts in the Dether theory that I want to work on. I keep envisioning data blowing up like a gaseous ball with a surface tension that only goes so far before the bubble bursts.
Yeah,
and
then there's a foul shot.
Your thoughts on bubbles have influenced because I was thinking about the Dether for many years, but now envisioning this, especially obviously the fiat inflation and hyperinflation, and then seeing in my mind's eye this massive bubble of data that it could pop. Anything it's supporting eventually, no matter how round the edges of that thing, which I don't know if the government has round edges, to be honest with you, but let's say that it did. If it had round edges, that even at its roundest edge could pop that surface tension on the Dether and cause a rapid deflation of that Dether bubble. And it's something that has...
like Luther did with the... you can think of... Sorry, keep going.
It's something that's been on my mind a lot, and I really like that you have found a way to connect. I bet that will end up because I set up Messy 46 to be, it'll be a while before I write it, but to be about external memory. I'm going to let that marinate for a while, because I really think that aside from communication, a lot of the unexplored here would be plasma, various forms of chemistry and plasma physics that we have to, in the philosophy there. I want us to get more resolution in these calls. We do love to move topic, but investigating and zeroing in, I think we have to use more chemistry in our discussion of the philosophy there. I really do. And so kudos to you on talking about the surface tension on all sorts of levels.
I think that it's in combination. The surface tension is the high kind of, the overarching branch on this one. I think going below that goes to the double layer concept. So once you have multiple bubbles or multiple cells or multiple anything that come in alignment with one another, they then are able to collectively break through that first layer and go straight into the second. And that second layer, the second layer, allows for all of them to become in itself its own specific entity, so to speak. They become in alignment with one another and they grow in size then through that instantaneous process of that occurring. So they then develop their own surface tension as a grouping. So it's the alignment, the alignment between the two cells being able to basically penetrate that surface tension that's stored on the external first layer and then make it through to that second layer. And once at that second layer can then become, the Vesica Pisces, they can then join together as one entity, though being two, they're connected, energetically and
or magnetic field lines.
Either one, all in the same conceptual concept of, out of one becomes two, etc. So it's, instead of going the opposite direction of dividing and creating cells, it's the concept of coming together. Memory is the coming together of the alignment versus the opposite. From birth, we come into this world going the opposite direction, but then memory is the alignment of all of that coming from two into one.
Well, that gets directly into prophecy and prophets. What are the prophets seeing? What are the prophets looking at? What are the prophets internalizing and externalizing?
I can't believe that you just said that, given the paper that I'm writing. I'm going to share the screen while you're keep going. Jesus, buddy. Literally.
Well, this isn't an accident. My thinking comes from studying the Dougherty set for almost 20 years. 2023 will be 20 years. And of course, Love is Watching is going to have a huge birthday party. It's the same week we had the event last year, the EM 2022 Electromagnetic World Expo, August 17th, that week. I've been studying this stuff forever, and it just starts to line up with it. It does not line up, and then I'm like, holy crap! And then I'm like, so the memory, I keep having visions of these bubbles, and it keeps coming more and more and more, and I'm like, there's an economic bubble, there's everything is a bubble, there's a housing bubble, there's the family bubble, you know, there's your own personal bubble. Like, people explain everything like bubbles. Dude, you're too close to my bubble. You know, like, this is my personal space. There's
And what are torus fields shaped like? Bubbles.
Exact bubbles. Yeah. The whole thing is a vortex fields, like force fields, but vortex fields. Yeah, double layers, man. The whole entire thing, it goes from inside out to outside in. When you're on the outside of something, you're going to go directly into it next. When you're inside something, you're going to go directly out of it next. There's no way around it. It's the only way that the system works. Outside in, inside out. In not lambda. What's the name for the infinity sign?
Analemma.
Yeah, analemma, and there's another one. There's a mathematical term for it. I forget it right now. Thought it started with an L. But this shape, imagine coherence. The Dougherty set is coherent. When you have math that works together in perfect harmony, there's a coherence that happens. Now, when you have multiple layers of stacked coherence, you have membranes, you have bubbles, you have eons, you have the akasha, you have so this memory that's being recorded throughout all of history has and is able to be tapped into by every one of us, but it takes practice to get there. It might take a whole lifetime to get there. And to even I've reached a lot of these states that a lot of these spiritual people talk about, you know, and I'm telling you, Nirvana is not the best one, you know, that's it's all right. But there's so many more layers and so many more names and other things that we haven't even begun to explain about our identity with the universe, which is really discovering ourselves as God, discovering ourselves as the universe observing itself, literally. Yeah, coherence. It's all coherent from point to point to point to point. So what then can we derive out of ball lightning? Does ball lightning have answers that none of us have? Probably. And it's in the memory of the ball lightning because it's coherent and it's cognitive. It might not be cognitive, but there's a coherence to it. And that coherence does breed cognition. So I've heard people talk about ball lightning. After my brother died, my whole life is just a series of nothing but serendipity and coincidences. So of all of ours. But the fact that when my brother died and my dad has never had a big spiritual event in his entire life and he's been spiritually lethargic, brings to the point that after my brother died, my dad had a vision, plain as day, while he was awake, of going out to a field, walking in the field where he used to go with my brother fishing together, their little special spot. And all of a sudden, this blue ball lightning orb came out of nowhere and came up to my dad and gave him this comforting feeling and then left. And who is it to know that I was going to be the one to describe the structure, the actual structure of it, the infinite amount of types of ball lightning that exist. There's an infinite amount of ways of the ball lightning to tie together, and each one of them directly connected to each one of the birkeland currents that has the information in it through the external memory. So if we could create ball lightning in the lab to talk to us about the memories, or even start to have some sort of inclination of what it is it's self-descriptive and it's self-reflective, all of the words. So it's going to describe to us the memory that it has. And the memory is probably in the ball lightning. And then the ball lightning is going to tell us about the memory in the water. It's not that the memory is in the water. It's not that the memory is in the nucleus. It's probably because it's in the theory of one electron. The whole universe is, what if, and this is proposed by a mathematician, what if the whole universe is one electron? And it's constantly moving and drawing the whole thing, the entire thing in the universe, at the speed of whatever everything's moving at. That's a theory, and no one's disproved it yet. I don't know. Just kind of talking about the whole memory, external memory and stuff.
So it just so happens to be the topic of this particular section of the paper. I don't know without, because people have their own faiths. Have I ever done a talk, because I talk Taoism a lot, have I ever done a talk with you guys on Buddhist alchemy? I think I have, but I don't know for sure.
I don't know, but it better do with external memory or internal memory, or I'm going to fry my hard drive.
Well, I don't know if you're reading the screen or not.
No, I'm smoking weed.
Then you're missing out.
Damn it. And then I got high.
Well, are you guys did you guys run out of steam?
No, I think memory exists on the membrane. Yeah. I think memory exists on the membrane, and we're always building and pushing that membrane. And it's connected to an umbilical cord.
See, an
internal. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to process it all in the moment here. It's the multiple umbilical cords. I keep going back to the concept of a collective. You have these conjunctions, you have these moments in time that create by default. You don't have a choice. You know what I mean? It's everywhere around you, the newspaper, the television, everything, unless you're, a monk in the hills, or you're, meditating in the forest or something, and have absolutely no access to society. But these events that occur are creating, in my mind, in everyone, some form of an umbilical cord that then can what? Why? What is the energetic reason behind creating a collective memory?
Well, let's look at mass formation psychosis real quick, or mass hysteria, as it was called. I think, I can't remember if it was Freud or Nietzsche. One of them developed the concept. But you can train. You can get so many people to believe something. I don't even know where I'm going with that. We were talking about mass formation psychosis a minute ago. And to tie that
right, as far as that's concerned, if you were able to collectively, as a whole, utilizing multimedia, social media, news, newspapers, etc., as a whole, collectively create a penetration through the first layer, and get to the second, to get to the double layer, and then collectively create that energetic field, potentially. It speaks to that mass psychosis concept, in the sense that then massively as a group, right, as a group, individuals, certain aspects of what they've perceived as memories, or if you wanted to keep something a secret, so to speak, what better way to do so by creating multiple mass casualty events, shooting at the, Las Vegas, Challenger explosion, the JFK. We got all these points. But now we have this concept with Mandela. People are starting to remember both ways, certain aspects of the past. And you got the Simpsons talking about it all the time. I mean, you just have so many of these oddities occurring now in today's world based upon that. I think that what we're just really coming to the realization of is that, and Rick, this goes back to the concept of the magnetosphere, that either what's happened is that the planetary alignment or the cyclic time of this planet, whatever's taken place, has allowed the slow, not degradation of the magnetosphere, but a weakening of that based upon the fact that, I don't know, the planets are closer, whatever the luminaries in the sky and the heavens are dictating to us. And that is creating a lower level of the magnetosphere being dropped at a lower point, allowing us further and easier access to the level of understanding. So, and to these Akashic records, to the memory, to the ethos, as an individuals, no matter what your interferences are based upon your DNA makeup, based upon your diet, based upon whether or not you're just sitting fasting on a hill somewhere constantly, no matter what, there's the baseline, the middle is being moved progressively forward as the planet has decided to go up in its consciousness level, in its location to the luminary, so that the memories can be recalled at an easier pace for everyone as a whole, averagely. So the magnetosphere drops. Sorry, go ahead.
That's probably exactly what the what is it? The rapture is.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, these bubbles that we notice and we realize where there's a break, or it pops, or there's a calling out of, or
I think it's an alignment,
a pulling, like magnetic filings, all of a sudden pulling into formation, like there's a, or when you turn up the what's that called? When you put sand on a plate, a Chladni pattern. When you put sand on a plate,
cymatics, the cymatics of it. Yeah.
And it changes rapidly.
Right.
That's like the Christendom, that can be likened to the idea of the rapture, where
it goes to everything. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Christians are magnetically drawn in a certain totally different direction, whether the planet starts spinning this way or that way, or that kind of like thinking can be
right. And then you go, I mean, and that's all across, I think, a lot of different, even, you have the rapture, you have the Navajo, Native American, or at least the Hopi have the concept of, moving from one plane to the next, the dimensionalities, I guess you could say. The age, the Hopis call it the next age of man. So you have 3 and going to the 4th, and then going to the 5th and potentially 6th. Yeah. So it's really just speaks to the development. Right. I think it's truly the development of consciousness correlates. Obviously this is something I don't have to say to everybody, but it correlates along with the development of mankind as a whole. And the reason we haven't gotten further, I think, is because we've had these concepts of war, concepts of violence, the concepts of, we have moved away from the do no harm universal law and allowed society to be just so embedded with this innate violence towards our fellow man, based upon simple ideologies or simple belief systems or simple, absolutely asinine things. When you get down actually to the rubber meeting the road, they're really just petty at the end of the day, as a grand scale, in terms of life, in terms of just life itself, right?
All of a sudden, mankind walks out and looks, and everyone's doing similar things, and nobody remembers where the ideas, ideologies, traditions, or religions come from.
Right.
Everyone's indoctrinated, everyone's propagandized, and you don't want to be the person out. You don't want to be the one out. Otherwise,
you don't want to be the one not in alignment, so to speak. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, I think go back to the mass psychosis concept, and we're looking at mass psychosis as a whole, everywhere across the planet. I think as we speak, daily, there's a progression. Sorry? Yeah. There's a progression.
Collective trauma. They're pushing trauma. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. I got you. Yeah, it's collective trauma as well. But I think it goes to the concept of the alt stream. You know, you have these alternative outliers that Jung always wrote about, that always, and it's usually through the utilization of artists. You know, the artists have moved forward a lot of the progression of humanity outside and moving the middle and moving them outside these trains of thoughts and outside of the paradigm shifts. And I think that it goes back to the alt stream being and growing as rapidly as it is right now, you know, based upon whatever's happening with the magneto ether sphere, whatever we want to call it, the philosophy ether, all of that is slowly not degrading, but the protectional layer, and whichever way we want to describe that, is lessening based upon whether it's the alignment of the stars or it's the magnetic field, whatever the case. As that's lessening, the mass psychosis ability is dropping away. So this mass psychosis is moving out because the middles move forward, and you have so many outliers right now available to the world collectively. So the middle has to continue to move forward. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's a self-healing circuit. It's all taking care of itself, no matter how the plan goes forward with horrible things or good things.
Well, I think we got to remove that from society as a whole collectively. That has to be a decision that is made together to remove even the concept of war out of the conversation. That's no longer on the table, and we move into having complete and full discussions until this is over.
Dude, the whole entire thing about the world is intelligence agencies versus intelligence agencies. They're not going to stop. The intel is too good. The power is too good. And then from there's not going to ever be no secret army. Right now, you know, I mean, like,
I disagree. I disagree that, you know, humanity will move forward, and I don't care what these stupid secret societies think or what these agencies have up their sleeve or how long they can sit there and act like they have control of this thing. I'm sick. You know, it's just not going to happen.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I misspoke, and I didn't mean to say that it's not going to happen, but it's hard to imagine, shall I say, a world in 2022, almost 2023, where there's not intelligence agencies fighting each other and using the public for their gain, with small casualties, no casualties, just collective thinking, making us look here, making us look there, starting a new series on Netflix that's disgusting and dirty, and then starting another Netflix on special that's disgusting and dirty. And then they don't even talk about the numbers of people that watch these. They don't even give away their numbers. But whatever. I'm just saying it's hard to imagine. But when I imagine it, I envision it like looking at Sorensen's model of Don Scott's model of a birkeland current, where the layers, these quote unquote necessary evils, should operate and exist on certain counter rotating layers, but that's almost what they do around these around countries and certain religious institutions. There's a boundary, and that force field is the army. So that boundary that needs to protect those institutions probably still needs to be there in one way or another, but that boundary can be replaced with something else. So
yeah, I mean, and that just all goes to intent. Once individuals that have the ability to maintain a higher level of intent are in the position of the POSs now, and individuals with the intent to do good, they can work through all of the differences and nuances and things like this and run around with whatever they want in terms of maintaining protection. But it's just the base. If everyone is underneath the same intent, you can still maintain these structures and systems, but the intent of the POSs that are currently in power are there in order to simply keep their power and maintain their levels of greed, lust, and these different negative energies. The shift being swung to where individuals, I don't know if it's our generation or the next or even past that, But there will come a time when the individuals that are motivated with the intent of the negative items are replaced with individuals that truly do give a shit about their common man. They have a higher level of empathy. I think that is what I mean by moving the middle. I think that that's the concept that's taking place, that the higher level of empathetic, is that a word? Individuals that are coming into existence now and have been for quite some time, they are in the they have the positional authority to remove the POSs from their spot, but it's not necessarily an overnight thing, but unless we want to get out the pitchforks. The process is moving slowly towards that, in the sense that as the middles move forward, it's just an attrition thing. It's just by attrition, these POSs will be removed. And even at the highest of levels, all the way down to the individual serving paperwork to the, their neighbor as a sheriff, I think that they'll have a higher level of empathy in their nature completely. And we're seeing that transition take place. And we have to, I think, make a decision. Like I've said this so many times, but it's whether or not the pitchforks come out or not based upon how fast we want this to move.
Yeah, I don't know. I think things like it's always darkest before, it gets light before the light or whatever. I don't know. There's saying something like that around that. And Bible prophecy, it talks about it being godless days and godless people, and I personally think there's been a worse thing than, maybe not worse, but maybe worse, whether it is or not, that's for God to judge. But there's a bad, the abortion rate and killing. It's been known that the power, they talk about the power is in the young blood, and that's the youngest blood you can get, and it's just the death rate of babies is just skyrocketing.
Yeah, I think what we need to look at,
skyrocketing, really. Everything's exponentially growing. So it's like any problem you want to focus on, you can point at it and show the exponential curve, like Al Gore did with his dumb movie Inconvenient Truth, that I was telling everybody it's so dumb, and all the fake woke people at the time that were so spiritual were like, you can't hate on this movie. This is the truth, man. I'm like, shut up. It's not gonna happen. I'm like, come on, you guys. This is the EPA taking over the world and saving us from in the name of nature, and actually restricting us and keeping us confined. So
right.
Anyway.
No, I hear you. I just, until the individuals that have until I just think it's a matter of until those individuals are removed.
Yeah, and PETA and the in the name of nature, in the name of we know what was written on the 10 Commandments of the Georgia Guidestones, American Stonehenge.
Yeah. Well, and but those were blown up, right? They blew those up, and what was it? The Swahili and the Hindi language were the two that got blown up along with the capstone. Go back and you do your deep dive on the importance or concept of that. And there's a lot there.
Oh yeah, there always is. There's never a lack of fun stuff to go down them rabbit holes.
So, but I don't know. I think as far as collectively is concerned, memory, all these things, there was a time that was better than now. Otherwise, we wouldn't feel the draw so heavily towards it as far as humanity is concerned. That's what I feel. I think that memory exists. I think that, concept of Atlantis, Tartaria, whatever historical knowledge anybody wants to remember or recall it as, the overarching concept, it's like the Zeitgeist movie. It's like the concept that we did exist here on this planet at one time in harmony with one another, much so that we have now. And speaking directly to the concept of everything's being magnified right now in a much negative way, or a much higher, a greater negative way, that I think in itself is serving the purpose as well to get us to this point.
I think that goes directly to the yuga cycles and the hyperbolic, cyclical, fractal, recursive looping, inner looping, positive feedback loop, negative feedback, positive and constructive wave interference of the Dougherty set, topologically explaining this on all scales, and it's just so simple. It's been written about in so many different books, so many different places, but it's just so simple. It hurts the brain to be like, oh, that's what number is. Oh, that's what frequency is. Oh, that's what builds a body. Oh, that's, and it's like,
so a minute ago, you were talking about how it's, calamitous times now versus, and they've had calamitous times in the past. I mean, they've been greater than they have been for now, et cetera.
And I think it's pitches on the angle of this geometry, either coming to a pitch, a fever pitch, or a growth cycle, which is moving towards source, and then everything. I think.
Well, see, that's what I was about to say. Right there, that right there is when humanity reaches a point, though it may be calamitous and all these things. I think the biggest thing to recognize is in these previous times, the humanity hadn't been at the pivotal point that it's at now, where if something's not done, then humanity as a whole suffers from being able to go forward. So it's causing an overarching effect. So like even during your Vietnam War and you had the protesters and things, the percentage wasn't there. It just wasn't there. But from then till now, because I mean, you had Woodstock, you had all these great movements, you had the whole thing that all the hippie stuff took place out of California. I mean, you had multiple eye-opening moments for a lot of people across the world, but it wasn't nothing in comparison to what we're all going through now, in the sense of the realization, B, the number of individuals that are quote unquote at least paying attention, awoke, whatever, but not that, but it's more paying attention. I don't want to use that term, but people are very much so paying more attention now for the majority, especially our generation and below. So with that being said, the calamity that we're seeing now, the biggest thing I think to recognize, the biggest thing to recognize would be the concept of when it mattered for humanity's progress more. And I think that's where we're at right now, is that because we're at the place where so many things are in so many different angles, so many different directions, that it matters whether or not humanity is going to be able to go forward or not. And we've reached these points in the past several times, but nothing like this. Not anything like this.
No, this is a big one, boys. This is the one that all religions are waiting for their central figures to show up, and it's like it's been expedited, and key central figures are sitting there waiting in the thrones to occupy these places. Huh. I mean, literally, this is all just like a fairy tale. Like it's
like somebody wrote it down somewhere sometime.
It's like prophecies that people have talked about, or maybe those prophecies become self-fulfilling prophecies. People believe in these so much that it creates the ether to wax and wane towards they can't progress until the fulfillment of the prophecies. And then humanity may progress after that. But everyone needs their fulfillment to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't happen, right? And what fulfills all the prophecies?
Yeah.
What would fulfill all the prophecies? Like they have group meetups that talk about this. And
well, I mean, it depends on which group, I guess, you're coming to.
The simple answer is aliens.
Well, yeah, that is one.
Yeah, and using aliens as a Stephen Hawking type figure that says, "We built you, humanity. Yes, you did." We would repeat it, and then it's okay.
It's like the movie V, or that series that came out in the '80s. V is awesome.
Yeah, and they're like, "We instruct you to treat the earth with kindness." Yes, treat the earth with kindness.
Thank you. No. I mean, I get it, man. I get it. Yeah, maybe it's aliens.
Like Blink 182's tied in. The music is going to be made by them. It's going to be the new holy music, the new holy religion. and it's going to tie all the people together in the yeah.
Hey, worshiping no aliens.
World religion. It's the perfect way to create a one world religion, one world government, one world, and fuse it all together. And the aliens can say, look, we did this, we did that, we did this. And what has been priming us for this? Ancient aliens. Even though
he had good hair, though, man. He had good hair. You got to give it to him.
I love labradorite. I heard Ramon talk about it, but I just got these amazing pieces, and this one's just like, wow. I didn't know it was the Aurora Stone.
Ramon, you still there? Or did you have to jump off? Man, I've got to jump off, buddy. I've got to make a call. Somebody is actually waiting on me to call them right back. They tried to call me while we've been on here.
Okay, so, cool. Well, we'll talk. Yeah. We'll talk in a little bit, guys.
Yeah, all man, right. This is a good call. It's a good topic.
Yeah.
Dang, really
yeah,
was.
Great topic.
All right, bro. Y'all be good.
Have a good day, man. See you guys.
Too. Bye-bye.
The geometric view is a love is watching product. Love is watching being. Thank you for doing that. Keep your eyeballs out. Pay attention. There's a lot going down this year. Be vigilant. Be mindful. Be insightful. Be loving. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being kind. Share the love. Spread the love. Become the love. Amen. Thank you very much for tuning into episode 78 about external memory. I hope we have a deeper understanding of where memory is, what it is, how it resides, how it multiplies, how it is part of the fabric and the experience. The observed and the observer are not separate. Love is watching. Thank you for doing that. Have a good weekend. We'll see you guys next weekend. Love you all. Peace.
hope. So just hope. Just hope for the rhythm that you got. Cause you got the rhythm in the pop. The ball burst. Burst. The burst. The thirst. Life is eternal, hope and thirsty. 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 Life is eternal, hope and thirsty.
Eyes all over the wall, eyes all over your body. And I can see straight through with transparent golden scaling. The largest of the edifice embark on this because this is the journey. The journey is life. Take hold. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Join us in the fight for Christ, in the fight to save lives. Surprise, submersible, so fast, the first, the last of baptism, need to say more. Pay attention like the marrow in your bones, zero in your back, arrow in your lungs, zero into the fact, tertiary and Christian neurons, synapses and narrow endurance into eternity. I'm a courier, a charismatic attitude, modern meters even meter, it might even be fun. Cider indeed, need nerds, you need nerds, need a virtue, need to be a reason. Feasibility to be is a reason to be clean and sober, keys, open doors, signs of directions. Be the carrier of candlesticks, the man who brought you change. Every second you ride, until in your ribbon you pivot, potential you curvy cat, could be cold, could be copycat, could be copy corpse, could be Schrodinger's best, could be Micro Hacker, Mackie Normo, open-minded, itsy bitsy, freaking huge, a universal supermassive aspect of attached awareness. Aware of this all? Collaborative consumption. Are you aware of this all? Collaborative consumption. The new thing consumption. Collaborative consumption.
Get up now! Out of the boat! Drop! Where did this up? We don't got about a girl, but about a not about a goddess spirit. Get up, what's up? Get out, tap comes. We're playing on the middle, what's up? I'm in search of, I'm in earth love, I'm in living life, I'm in living color, I'm in air drop, I'm in earth dang, I'm in earth dang, I'm in earth dang, I'm in earth dang. give up, never give up. Never give up, never give up, never give up.